Borough Park, Brooklyn, had been a COVID red zone in September and October. It's a heavily Orthodox Jewish neighborhood that's also got a history and presence of Roman Catholics of Eastern and Southern European descent. Leaders of both of those groups were joyous today.
Made my Thanksgiving Day, that's for sure.
I think it's a great victory for religious freedom, the cause of religious freedom more generally across this country.
They were grateful for this, a 33-page ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court that came out late last night that said that Governor Andrew Cuomo's limitations on people attending worship services in COVID microcluster zones were unconstitutional.
It's a different court, and they wanted to make the statement that it's a different court.
It was indeed the first major decision by newly confirmed Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and she was the deciding vote in the 5-4 decision. Similar cases from earlier this year were 5-4 the other way, with now deceased Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg giving the deciding vote.
We know who he appointed to the court. We know their ideology.
But the plaintiffs in this case, the Diocese of Brooklyn and Agudath Israel, say this is about religious freedom nationwide. And they say it's about common sense against the state's rule that only 10 people can attend services in a house of worship in a COVID red zone.
There are places where, for example, I'm on the board of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. That church seats 5,000 people. They are only allowed to have 100 people by the laws of the District of Columbia. And the district refused to hear their plea.
It made no sense to treat a small little synagogue that holds 25 people regularly the same as one would treat a synagogue that holds 500 people.
President Trump also weighed in on the decision, saying, quote, "Happy Thanksgiving," unquote, in a retweet of an article about this ruling. That might bolster Governor Cuomo's description of the court's action as being political, but there was actually some common ground between the governor and the religious plaintiffs in the case.
We understand the issue of protecting people in a pandemic. We have followed all the rules.
The court's ruling does not mean that that religious people or religious institutions are totally exempt from following good health practices.
That's the intent of the governor's microcluster zone rules, he says. Now, this case is not over. It heads back here to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals just before Christmas. Both sides are convinced that this court will side with them. But if it ends up siding with the governor, it gets appealed again to the Supreme Court, and we know how it is likely to rule. So there may be incentive there for the governor to reach a compromise. Reporting from Lower Manhattan, I'm James Ford, Pix 11 News.